Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. As you can see, we had a little hang-up in the beginning of the show. Anyhow, we are going to have a great show for you today. As usual, today we're going to talk about something that the Republicans finally admitted. They finally admitted that, guess what? They are going to go after you. They are coming after you, folks, and this is no joke. They, you can see that one of the people who is in the administration isn't quite apt at knowing exactly what's going on, because he came out and pretty much fessed up and said, oh, yes, as soon as the election is over, guess what we're going to do? We are actually going to do a few things to you, the American people. This is no joke. It may sound like we're just saying things. It may sound like this is not possible, but that is what they're doing, folks. But let me tell you something. Let me be very clear with all of you. None of this has to happen. None of this has to happen at all, because the truth of the matter is we are the ones still in control, right? A lot of folks think that somehow or otherwise that the Republicans are still in control of everything. The truth of the matter is they are not in control at all. And we have to remember that as we go forward. Now, bear with me a second as I get all this these stories queued, because right now we are not completely on the network. I know for those of you who was with us yesterday, you know that we had some technical problems with the feed going to Blog Talk Radio. It seems like Blog Talk Radio got most of that resolved, and what we are doing right now is making sure that in fact it is resolved. And what we're doing as well is making sure that we queue your program so that we can have maximal throughput. What I want to remind all of you is that what we do need from you right away is for you to share these programs. And the reason why we have to share these programs, and for those of you, many of you have heard me repeat this over and over again, so I ask you to bear with me on this one. But for those of you who don't know, we are throttled all of the times. As progressive stations and progressive networks, we get throttled all of the times. And what does throttling mean? It means that we don't, that much of our programming doesn't get heard or doesn't get placed into the feeds of people. Now, we have over 80,000 on all the pages that we own that's a part of the Willis Media LLC and the Politics Done Right domain. We have over 80,000 people that have come to us, if you will. And as it turns out, guess what? Many of them, as soon as we come online, one would think that as was always working, those people who said they want to hear your stuff would get notifications that you're on. No longer is that occurring. Is that a conspiracy? Many people say, we don't want to talk conspiracy theories. But when it mostly happens to progressive or actively progressive stations, one must ask the question, one must ask how real it is. Anyhow, the subject of today's program is, and the title is, GOP admits they are coming after your Social Security and lessons not learned from the 2008 meltdown. And I think it is important that we cover that, because a lot of what's occurring right now involves many of the things, believe it or not. You remember that show, Believe It or Not? Well, believe it or not, a lot of the things endemic into what's occurring today has a whole lot to do with what's going on now. So, folks, if you're just joining us, please remember to go ahead and share these programs. We need you to do this real badly because of how we, like I mentioned before, progressive stations, progressive networks, progressive streams are severely throttled. What do throttling mean? It means that all the people that claim they want to listen to you, all the people that claim they want to hear you, the several thousands that are out there, guess what happens? Facebook says, well, you know what? We are not going to show you them. But anyhow, that doesn't matter because you know what, man? We're going to continue pushing the story. And even after we do our live show, we continue to push our podcast. Why? Because we are going to get the story out. By the hook or by the crook, we are going to get the story out. And we never, never, never give up. Anyhow, title of the story. GOP admits they are coming after your Social Security and lessons not learned in 2008. Subtitle, they admit it. They admit it. The Republicans will pay for tax cuts for the tax cut scam with cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and more. And the 3 big lessons we have not learned from the economic crisis. Anyhow, folks, today Politics Done Right, again, covers 2 subjects. Yesterday, the GOP was not shy in telling reporters that if they hold on to Congress, they are ready to attack the Social Security safety net. You see, Republicans are very, very smart. They know how to do things. They do things in the right order. It is easy to cut taxes, but hard to raise them. Their tax cut scam had a purpose they cannot deny. The intent was to starve the government, and then they drive up the budget deficit. And right now, the budget deficit has reached unseen numbers. The year isn't even over, and it's over $800 billion. And to think that Trump used to give Barack Obama a hard time for a budget deficit caused by the destruction of the economy, starting with Ronald Reagan, and the continued of the destruction of the economy by George W. Bush, with yet more tax cuts, that forced us to spend, force all. Look, it was simply crazy. But anyhow, the intent was to starve the government, and then they drive up the budget deficit. They tell Americans they must cut Social Security, Medicare, and more of the social safety net to bring the deficit down. It is mean, and they must pay for their deception. You must make them pay for their deception. Robert Reich, second story, Robert Reich wrote a prescient article. In effect, he detailed what we failed to learn from the 2008 economic implosion. It is something that needs coverage, especially now. Folks, if you're just joining us, please remember to go ahead and share this program on your Facebook page, on your network, everywhere else. Right now, we're in Blog Talk Radio. The Blog Talk Radio network is up. So you can give us a call at 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. But before I get into that part of the program, there is some news that I want to talk about. And this is not only, while it's occurring in Texas, it's more than just a Texas news, okay? And I want you to hear me out here. This is very, very important. Here's the deal. And let me get to the story. I just wrote it because what happens is a lot of stories, we get a lot of, as professional bloggers, national bloggers, we get a lot of stories that we get early on that is then they force us to quarantine it. They send you the story and they tell you this is quarantined until this time. So we got the Quinnipiac poll yesterday, but we know what it said. And anyway, the Quinnipiac poll for the Texas race came out. And this has national implications, okay? Because in order for Democrats to win the Senate, we need to win Texas, the Senate in Texas, Arizona, and a few other places. That's the way we take over the Senate completely. And my contention is, if we really have a wave, there is actually a path that we don't only take over the Senate, but we get a veto-proof Senate. Anyhow, folks, let me tell you, first of all, it is imperative if you're just joining us, if you're just listening, like I tell folks all the time, please share this on your wall. Please share this on your page. It is so imperative that people hear this. But anyhow, the likely voter poll came out, and I want to read a little piece of it because it's rather important. Republican incumbent Ted Cruz has a 45% likely voter lead over U.S. Representative Beto O'Rourke, his Democratic challenger in the Texas state race, according to a Quinnipiac University poll released today. This is the first survey of likely voters in this race by the independent Quinnipiac poll and cannot be compared with earlier surveys of registered voters. Among Texas likely voters who chose a candidate, 93% say their mind is made up. That include 94% of Cruz backers and 92% of O'Rourke backers. I want to warn everybody that's listening to it, because to some Beto O'Rourke voters or supporters, that kind of poll can initially seem demoralizing. I want to tell all of you guys to hold your horses and get out there and continue to campaign for Beto O'Rourke, continue to fight, continue to register voters, continue to do all these things for Beto O'Rourke. And the reason why is this. This is a likely voter poll. In Texas, the current state of Texas, a likely voter poll means absolutely nothing. And let me tell you why it means nothing. A likely voter poll says, I know who's going to vote because they voted before. So therefore, when I'm comprising my voter model, I can determine who are hard voters, soft voters, etc., etc., etc. Now, just in Harris County alone, over 2,000 voters were registered in the last month. New voters, likely voters for progressive candidates. It is important to note that this likely voter model would not have captured those. So what has to happen is, I'm not saying the race isn't close because of historical reasons, but what has to happen right now is that Texans, Texas registrars have to go out there and register the hell out of people. But secondly, it is incumbent on the Beto O'Rourke campaign to start making the distinctions. Its happy messages are wonderful. I love it because it comes across as nonviolent, non-fighting, not as super aggressive. But for the voters that he's left to get, for the voters that he now needs, those are the voters that want to see a fight. In other words, you have to go take those voters now, Mr. Beto O'Rourke. The voters that are not with you right now, the 6% voters that you need now to win and more, they want you to show a fight. They want you to show that you can go up against the best in Congress. They want you to know what you're going to do for them. They also want you to know what is a danger of reelecting somebody they're comfortable with. So it is incumbent on the Beto O'Rourke campaign, it is incumbent on Beto O'Rourke proper to start coming out and hitting Mr. Ted Cruz on the danger, the clear and present danger that he represents to Texans, because that is exactly what he is. He has to use phrases that I use in my own shows, that Ted Cruz, through the policies of not supporting the Affordable Care Act, is supporting the murder of Texans. He has to also point out that Ted Cruz, in supporting the demise of much of Medicaid, Medicare, he is killing Texans. That many of the people, and that killing Texans, he's not killing them based on what party they belong to. He's assassinating Texans just because he runs this thing. Folks, I'm not kidding here. This may sound harsh, but the voters that are left to be convinced, the voters that are left to be told what voting for Beto O'Rourke is all about, requires that they are informed what the Republican Party represents. So many times I've told people, several times I've told people, in Texas, something that we have to start doing. We have to start letting the pain of what Texans are going through be completely equated to the government they've elected. And we know what government they've elected. Republicans that are currently destroying the state. Republicans that are currently destroying education, that are currently destroying health, that are currently destroying much of this good state. So that is what we have to do, folks. We have to start going out there and preaching the message. But folks. So that poll, while Ted Cruz has a 9-point lead, that is an easily overcome lead if Beto O'Rourke does his part, if the supporters of this man does his part. Maybe Beto won't need to go out and say Republicans are assassinating Texans. Yeah, that's harsh. I will say that. I will continue to say that because involuntary killing is assassination. It is murder. And I want people to understand that. You know, we have in the new book that I'm writing, I'm talking about indoctrination. You know, when those guys on Wall Street did things with people's money that caused many of them to commit suicide or many of them to kill others because of their loss of hope, we treat them as just, you know, the average person. When somebody dies from because of a common criminal pushing them aside and they accidentally hit a wall or something like that, we look at it as a vicious evil. And the reason we do that is how we were indoctrinated. Killing somebody with a piece of paper and financials don't accrue the same kind of hurt as somebody, you know, doing some other sort of killing. But it's the same. If you poison somebody, if somebody gives somebody arsenic or sleeping pills to kill them, it's no different than a stockbroker who knowingly hurt people and causes them to commit suicide, causes them or was instrumental in their mindset that caused the problem. But anyhow, we'll move on. Do you know what time it is?
It's time for the blog post.
Okay, folks, it's time for the weekly blog post, and here's what the blog post is about today. Today, the blog post is titled, oops, I need to get to it first. It's titled, They Admit It, GOP Will Pay for Tax Cut Scam with Cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and more. Okay, Republicans are smart. It is easy to cut taxes, but hard to raise them. Their tax cut scam had a purpose. They drive up the budget deficit and then tell Americans they must cut Social Security, Medicare, and more of the social safety net to bring the deficit down. It is one of the most selfish, mean, immoral, and cunning theft. Here is how they admit to it today, or how they admitted to it today. According to Common Dreams, as the GOP plows ahead with another round of budget exploding tax cuts for the rich, just before the crucial 2018 midterms, President Donald Trump's top economic advisor and former television personality, Larry Kudlow, confirmed on Monday that the White House will push for cuts to life-saving safety net programs like Medicare and Social Security if the GOP retains control of Congress in November. So there you go. He's saying it. If we remain in control in November, we're going after Medicare. We're going after Social Security. We will be attacking it. That's an attack. You know, you notice what I say about words, right? If you put words in a certain way, it sounds mellow. It sounds like they're not going to do anything. He says, if we retain the House, programs like Medicare, we will, confirmed on Monday, the White House will push the cuts for the life-saving safety net. You know, they're going to just push for cuts to save it. We have to be tougher on spending, Kudlow, the director of the National Economic Council, declared in remarks to the Economic Club of New York. Ask when Social Security and Medicaid will be targeted for reforms, which, as one advocacy group noted, is code for massive cuts. Kudlow said, everyone would look at it that probably next year. So there you go. You elect Republicans, you're voting to kill Social Security, a lot of Social Security and a lot of Medicare. That is by definition. You elect them one more time and they see. You see, here's the deal before I continue reading that piece. These guys are starting to feel like there are no consequences to their actions. We have an interesting person like Donald Trump. He was able to win the Electoral College. Completely unqualified for the job, but he still got elected. We get a whole lot of Republican senators do bad things. They remain in office, no problem. People tolerate it. Al Franken, one of the staunchest liberals, gets caught in a compromising photo. He's gone. Republicans are starting to notice one thing. They can get away with just about anything. Barack Obama, years left in his administration, he puts a judge out there, and they say, we're not touching him. He won't be placed on the Supreme Court because Barack Obama is at the end of his term. He has another year to go. And this is the same people that say they like to follow the Constitution. The Constitution says absolutely nothing about holding back a president choice for president. It says it says that the Senate's responsibility is to check on the person, make sure the person is a valid person, make sure the person consent. The funny thing about it is they've already said that this is one of the better guys because they put him on the court right beneath the Supreme Court before. So we know it was a good guy, and we know it wasn't some left-wing liberal, which I would have preferred going on to the Supreme Court. So they blocked that. Now that we're giving some trouble to a few of their Supreme Court judges, somehow that is unheard of. How could you possibly obstruct justice that way from a Supreme Court justice who is qualified? No, a Supreme Court justice who is a partisan hack. They are learning something, folks. Republicans in Congress are learning something. That's why you hear them saying, we don't know if there's really going to be a blue wave, because they really don't know. What they've been taught, what Americans have taught them, is they can do just about every evil, lie about it, and Americans believe. What we have to do as progressives is tell the truth in a manner that people can absorb and see it. Trump comes out and he says he's doing good with the trade war. No, he's not. He's against welfare. He's giving welfare to farmers that he's hurting with the trade deals. But the opioid epidemic, well, cut federal taxes. Cut federal taxes. With that, cut the Affordable Care Act. With that, we cut help for the people on opioid addictions, even though those are his voters. So most of what they do that's evil disproportionately not only affect people of color, but disproportionately affect his people. The poor Appalachian white folk that live in West Virginia and all the way down the Appalachia. That is who he affects. But they vote for him because they don't know. And many of us progressives don't try to reach these folks to talk to them. Well, I do. I have folks from Appalachia listening. I'm in contact with folks from Appalachia. That's what we do. And that's how we get the turn. So believe them when they say they are coming after Medicare and Social Security. Topher Spiro, senior fellow at the Center of American Progress, wrote on Twitter in response to Codler's comments, "This election is the last chance." And he left a tweet out there as well. So look, here are some ways they've already tried to undermine the program. And folks, please listen to this. And those of you in Appalachia and elsewhere, please listen to this. Those of you just joining us, please, 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 please go ahead and share this program. And we'll make sure that we continue to tell the truth. We make sure we continue to send the message. We make sure and know that we are never, ever, ever, ever going to give up. Because we know if we give up, it's game over. Folks, after I read the blog of the week, I hope some of you would call in 646-716-5812. The phones are working today, 646-716-5812. Anyhow, here are some ways they've already tried to undermine the program. Paul Rand on Medicare, he said, "It's the biggest entitlement we've got to reform." Paul Rand, December 6, 2017. "We're going to have to get back next year at entitlement reform, which is how you tackle the debt and the deficit." Oh, whoa. You just gave away $1.5 trillion, which increased the deficit by more than $100-something billion per year for 10 years. And you're going to talk about how to restore? Come on, folks. Frankly, it's the healthcare entitlements that are the big drivers of our debt. So we spend more time on healthcare entitlements. I think the president is understanding that choice and competition works everywhere in healthcare, especially in Medicare. This has been my big thing for many, many years. I think the biggest entitlement we've got to reform. Let's tell the truth. You know, basic Medicare is cheaper than Medicare Advantage. People who get Medicare Advantage cost the government more. But it's a racket because private companies come in and say, "Oh, pay us, and we'll create a great plan for those old people." But it costs more. Medicare Advantage costs more than regular Medicare, and that's to be expected. It has a profit motive. And that profit goes into the pockets of a few rich people who own the Medicare Advantage companies, the insurance companies that own it. So that is a transfer of your money directly to some CEOs, CFOs, and other company officials. Your money is what's being ripped off when we have Medicare Advantage. All right. President Trump and congressional Republicans are targeting Medicare and Medicaid to pay for tax cuts for the wealthiest. Last December, President Trump signed a $1.5 trillion tax bill that disproportionately benefits the wealthy. How do Republicans plan on paying for it? Speaker Ryan's answer is clear. Frankly, it's the healthcare entitlements that are the big drivers of our debt. In an attempt to pay for these tax cuts in April, House Republicans passed a budget amendment that would slash Medicare funding by $537 billion. That's billion with a B. So you see who the scapegoats are, right? You are. We give a whole lot of tax breaks to a whole bunch of rich people. And I know this sounds like we repeat ourselves on this all of the times, people. But if it's true, we got to do it. If it's true, we got to do it. And what I don't get is how people continue to believe. The lie. Well, that's what we are here for. All right. Congressional Republicans propose these cuts after passing a budget resolution last year that cut Medicare by $473 billion. The 2018 budget resolution passed by Republicans in December 2017 cut Medicare by $437 billion. And we have the links to all of these. So we're not just telling you these things out of the thin air. You can go to the CBO. You can go to all these places and check it out. As the cost of drugs skyrocket, President Trump and his Republican allies in Congress will not allow Medicare to negotiate for better price prescription drug prices. Under current law, the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services is explicitly prohibited from negotiating directly with drug manufacturers on behalf of Medicare Part D enrollees. Although it would decrease both federal spending and beneficiaries' out-of-pocket costs for prescription drugs, a policy allowing the federal government to negotiate prices for Medicare beneficiaries was noticeably absent from Trump's recent prescription drug announcement. Didn't they used to talk about choices? Didn't they used to talk about negotiating? Didn't they used to talk about options? What happened? Now we won't do that. We won't negotiate anymore. Oh my God. Folks, do you see the fraud here? Do you see the fraud that is occurring? Are you going to continue to be a part of the fraud, or are you going to end this fraud in November? And those of you who are Texans who just saw that poll come out where Beto O'Rourke is down by 9 points to Ted Cruz, before I continue, please do not take that to heart. It's a different polling methodology between the methodology that says he's within 2 points or 1 point, and this one that says 9 points. Was two different methodologies. One was registered voters, one was likely voters. Remember that the likely voters do not include the new voters. It does not include voters that are getting activated based on our enthusiasm. It does not include all of that. So, folks, a wave is something that supersedes a poll. Remember that. A wave is something that supersedes a poll. That's why it's a wave. It goes on top of the poll. You know, the wave is coming. The wave is coming. The wave is coming. Here's the poll numbers. The wave is coming. It goes and it supersedes the polls. That's what we expect. That's what we expect if we stay bold. That is what we expect if we continue. And this doesn't only apply to Texas. This applies throughout the country. The wave is coming. Disregard the polls. You just go out there and work. Register new people. Encourage progressives to register. You don't have to encourage conservatives to register, because most people that consider themselves conservatives are registered already, because that's how they get their majority. They're not really the majority of the country at all. At all. They're just the most consistent people in the country. Okay, continuing. Other ways that they've screwed us already. Congressional Republicans have repeatedly attempted to transform Medicare into a voucher program, which experts warn would lead to the demise of this program. Speaker Ryan has spoken about turning Medicare into a voucher system, and in the fall of 2017, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services filed a request for information concerning a shift in a new direction for Medicare, which Senate Democrats worried might entail a voucher system. Experts warn, and Republicans, including Newt Gingrich, acknowledged that such a lift or shift would lead to the demise of traditional Medicare as premiums increase. The things are churning already, people. It's churning. Hello, Christopher. Hi, Daniel Ledo, Bruce Pollard, and I have to scroll down to the next, but I'm coming to you guys in a little bit. So, folks, it's importante que estamos entendiendo lo que está pasando aquí, porque si no los entendemos ahorita mismo, ganan de nuevo y todos nos jodemos. If we do not listen now, if we do not act out now, we all lose and they screw us all. Experts warn, well, I did that already. So anyway, number 6, of how they're screwing us. Congressional Republicans repealed several components of the ACA designed to help keep Medicare's costs down, effectively driving up costs for the program. By repealing the requirement that most people have insurance, congressional Republicans knowingly voted for a measure expected to increase the number of uninsured. And with the number of uninsured increasing, it means the number of deaths. That's a direct correlation. So therefore, Republicans are going to be causing the deaths of many of your fellow Americans. Or you want to be complicit in killing your neighbor. Sounds tough, right? The reason I'm using the words like that, right, is normally that people would say, would you want to be complicit in getting your neighbors hurt or getting what's not in their best interest? Well, what's not in their best interest is dying, right? But we kind of don't say it on our side, right? We don't say it on our side, but we must. We must say it on our side, people. We must say it. We must say it. So, congressional Republicans knowingly voted for a measure expected to increase the number of uninsured. The 2018 Medicare trustee report predicts that this increase will increase the share of subsidies paid to hospitals via Medicare. Similarly, by repealing the Independent Payment Advisory Board, congressional Republicans took away a mechanism that slowed Medicare cost growth. So people, my brothers and my sisters, make no mistake. The 2018 midterm election is critical. Donald Trump and the Republicans wrecked Washington fiscally, morally, and environmentally. It is not yet irreversible. We can stop it before it's too late. On November 6th, 2018, you have got to do what? Vote. But it's not enough to just vote. You have to vote correctly. You have to vote for the right persons. You have to make sure, folks, once and for all, we've got to do the right thing. We have to be of clear mind. We have to know that what we ought to do is important. And not only is it important, it is going to, if we vote appropriately, folks, it will save lives. It will save lives. And that is what it's all about, folks. That is what it's all about. We have to save lives. And if we don't save lives, what is there? What is there? Anyhow, I think I better tell you, again, if you want to call in, that number is 646-716-5812. Again, that is 646-716-5812. I would love to hear from some of you. You'll be on air and we'll take your calls. We'll take your calls in the auto receive. Right now we have no calls. People like to listen. People don't talk much, but we are here waiting for your calls. 646-716-5812. And let me see what you're saying on the site. So bear with me 1 second. Let's see what you're saying. Sometimes these things are a bit slow. So as I get through my slow process, I'll get there, and then we'll kind of touch on Robert Reich's subject a little closer. I mean, I don't think we should spend a lot of time on that because we kind of know what is there. Okay, let's go to the live feed and see what you're saying. Anyhow, folks, again, the number 646 716-5812. While I try to get to your questions, I'll just go ahead and do my pitch, kill two birds with one stone. Please remember, this is a progressive show, my friends. We need your support. Please go to patreon.com, patreon.com, and support this show. I mean, buy us a coffee, give us a tea, or whatever, because I tell you what, absent us being successful doing this, there is no comeback. There's no comeback. So I ask you to go to patreon.com, patreon.com/politics done right. It's that link in the video, and you can see the link on the screen if you have to type it in somewhere. You don't have immediate access to the link. Okay, it seems like my slow phone has got this stuff, so let me get to your messages here. Let's see which is the top one. 1 minute. Okay, here we go. Michael Dean Newton. Hello, hi, Michael. Bruce Pollard. So the lower middle class who depend on Social Security and Medicaid are paying for big business. What a shame. Hasn't it always been that way? And isn't that what progressives have been doing for eons? We've been constantly trying to tell folks what's going on, but at the same time, we've done our job in mitigating the damage, in always, whenever the reversal come, always there to get stuff put back, which is what we have to do right now. We have to get back into the game. Okay, Daniel Ledo, how can they come after SS when the Ponzi scheme is broke? You see, that is a lie that everybody thinks, right? Social Security is not broke at all. And Social Security is not some locked box that puts money away for savings. It's not. It's the lie. You see, they had to tell you a lie in order for you to believe this thing is in trouble. Social Security is not in trouble. These are the things that they've done to Social Security that one should note. After you've made about $115,000 a year or so, the Social Security tax goes away. Therefore, as opposed to adjusting that tax based on the amount of people that are going to be in there, which means we have the baby boom generation coming out. The only reason they used to talk about locked box, right, is that the current Social Security payers are the ones who support the current Social Security recipients. That's what it's all about. It's not a Ponzi scheme. You had to have a whole lot of people working, and you have a whole few people that are on Social Security. Now, a lot of things happen. People live longer. Also, we expand what Social Security covers, which is a good thing, which means we need to increase the revenues for Social Security. It's not the opposite. It's not that we say you suffer the pain because we want to keep the same amount of money coming out of your check. No, that's not what it's all about. What it's all about is Social Security is just that, Social Security. Right now, there's a cap on how much of your income is taxed. The reality is all of your income should be taxed. Most Americans, the vast majority of Americans, make under the $115,000 a year. So most of their Social Security is taxed. Wealthy people, in other words, if somebody make $100 million, their Social Security requirement ends at $115,000. So you pay more on a percentage than that person. They could actually give away that $100,000. They don't care about that. So what I'm saying, Social Security is not broke. The Republicans do a special thing with Social Security. They make you believe it is broke so they can cut it. That's the only reason they tell you it's in trouble. Keep this in the back of your head. Social Security is neither broke nor is Social Security in trouble. I see a lot of people just came in again, so I want to repeat something. Social Security is not in trouble. All we have to do to solve the Social Security problem is to tax all income. And if we tax all income, your Social Security taxes will actually go down. Guess why? Because most of the income goes to the top 10%. People, if we actually knew this, what happens, and I'm going to discuss some of that in my new book. If we really knew what's going on out there, nobody would support the Republican type plans or the Blue Dog Democrat type plans. You hear what I said? And I just knocked Democrats as well. You're absolutely right. Nobody, if they knew how our economy functioned, would support any blue dog Democrat or would support any Republican. And the reason why they wouldn't is because the policies these people support are not really middle class centric policies that are fair, that are equitable. You know, we don't believe, those of us on the left, we don't believe in equal outcomes. We sure as hell believe in equal access to success. So that's the answer to that last question. Okay, let's see. Daniel Lado, I imagine when I talked about Republicans not suffering consequences, he asked, hey, what about Keith Ellison? Well, what about Keith Ellison? The person recanted. And you know what? You know what? If Keith Ellison is guilty, I guarantee you he won't win. All right. So when the ACA, this is from Mike Sisek now. Hi, Christopher Tiberos Andrews. Mike Sisek. So when the ACA canceled a whole bunch of policies while people were in the middle of the cancer treatment, they didn't kill thousands of people? Sorry, Berta. No, the claim isn't false. Your claim is false. By law, and hear this out, this is how the right wing lies. By law, if you start a treatment with a particular insurance company, that insurance company, that's an event. They have to continue with that event. Now, when it comes to the cancellation of policies, that was a good thing. Policies that got canceled, most of these policies weren't worth the paper they were written on. Or if the insurance company decided they didn't want to write that same type of policy again, so be it. It was always going to be that. Whether it is Obamacare who caused a private company to change a policy or not, that is something that happens all of the times. All of the times. But let me tell you better. What's evil? What is evil is what's occurring right now. We're allowing a whole lot of those terrible bad policies to come back on the market using a loophole. And what President Trump did is he said, okay, we allowed for short-term coverage, I think 2 months or something like that, 60 days or 90 days, people could get a non-standard policy and still fall within Obamacare. But after that, they had to get a real policy. They changed that to mean 364 days. Wow! A temporary policy can last 364 days, which means there's one day in the year you're uninsured, but you can get a junk plan. You think about that. Think about think about the technicality of the evil that had to go behind that. To find a loophole around that thing, sell junk policies. Wow. Okay, let me continue with your questions. 35-minute service outage, perfect timing, eh? Oh, where did you get an outage? Okay, the ACA has driven. This is Mike Sisek. The ACA has driven deductibles and out-of-pocket costs so high that people can't afford it. That's another lie. Let me tell you, before the ACA, you know what's so good about this? I am a small business owner. I've been a small business owner since 1989. I'm talking about one who insured himself. In other words, I had to insure myself and my family. And every year, premiums went up double digits. Not only did every year they went up double digits, which was way above inflation, but every year in adjustments, I had to increase my deductible to the point that I was paying at one time over $12,000. What is it now? I think it was $16,000 a year with a $10,000 deductible, meaning I was paying out of pocket. Listen to me, folks. I'm not being just, because like I said, I used Obamacare, but I never got a stipend. I never got a what do you call the thing on Obamacare? The kickback. I forgot what you called it. Anyhow, I was never subsidized. So I paid the full cost of the insurance every single time. And what I'm saying is there was a time my out-of-pocket medical costs for a year was $26,000. Okay? $26,000. What I'm trying to tell you people is this. To my great Republican listeners on this that listens to the show all the time, I'd like you to tell you that I am not some left-winger who doesn't hold its own or wants something for nothing. Absolutely not. I've never had a year without insurance. knock on wood, I stopped working for the corporate structure in 1989, and I've had my small company since. And I gave up my company a few years ago to become a full-time political activist because I knew something had to change. And being in all sides, being in corporate America, and likewise owning my own business, I can speak to it all, my friends. And also having a wife with lupus with a pre-existing condition, I can speak about it. I can also tell you about blogs that I've written where I've said, guess what, folks? Obamacare saved my life. Why? Because I wasn't going to go to doctors to get to somehow end up with a pre-existing condition, which would have changed my personal economy, because that would have meant going forward I either would not be able to get insurance or my insurance would be minimized. So I didn't go for things like colonoscopies and all of that for a long time. As soon as Obamacare became effective, I went for a colonoscopy, and yes, they got a couple of polyps or something like that. Probably saved my life. I'll probably get one sometime in the next 2 years. I think they do it every 10 years or so. I should do it. But what I'm trying to tell you folks is this. I've lived this. This is not ideology for me. This is not ideology for millions of Americans. A lot of people that are jumping around screaming don't understand how they're being hurt. A lot of people that are jumping around screaming don't understand that they're insulated from the damages of this economy by their companies, and that their companies proper get a refund for the damages created to you because you haven't gotten a raise. A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people don't realize that stagnant wages has a lot to do with health care. The company tells you they're not going to give you the full cost of the increase of health care. They just ain't going to pay you an extra stipend, an extra wage, an extra salary. That's all it's about. It's always about enriching a few. I wish more of you would understand that and cloud your eyes away from the ideology. Michael Redden, Social Security isn't broke. Thank you very much, my friend. Social Security can pay out until 2090, and if we tax every dollar indefinitely. Ledo, yup. The go-to policy for socialists, just tax more. No, that's called fiscal responsibility. Fiscal responsibility. You don't spend what you don't have. Something that I think is a good thing. All right, the Social Security cap is around 118K. Thank you for enlightening me with the number. You know, it goes up every so often, and I remember when it ended at $110,000. Now it's up to $118,000. I've asked the conservatives in the chat, do you want people who can't afford health care to die from lack of coverage? That's the way it was before the ACA came around, with 45,000 Americans dying from lack of health care. In Texas alone, it's over 2,000 people die every single year. Every single year. For the people that believe in morality, for the people that believe in moral justice, for the people that claim life, for the people that claim to be pro-life, how can you be so pro-death? Ask yourself. My question is, how do you sleep? Knowing that your actions materially affects somebody else. I am not going to get to Robert Reich's story, but it's in the blog, so you can actually get there, because what I want to do is I want to go into one of my soliloquies, since I only have a few minutes to talk about it. But if you want to call in, you can still give me a call. I'll listen to whatever you have to say. I'll put you on air. If you want to just go out and say it, just give us a call at 646-716-5812. Do remember, this is your show. This is absolutely your show, and if you have something to say, I would love for you to go ahead and just come on air and say it. I like reading it in the chat room as well, but I would much love for you to get on air and say it, let other people understand or hear your voice. And if you disagree with me, I do not mind people disagreeing with me at all. I really don't. There are certain things that are gray. There are certain things that are black and white. When they're black and white, I don't care what you have to say. Where it comes to certain types of moralities, as far as keeping people alive, those are non-negotiable where I'm concerned. I am going to do nothing. I will do absolutely nothing to effect the death of my fellow human being, whether American or otherwise. I will try to avoid absolutely anything to really hurt another human being. So what I want to tell you is this. Right now, as it stands, we have an election coming up. People are going to go ahead, most or a lot, are going to vote their ideology. Here's the funny thing. A clock is right twice a day. So those of you who are conservatives that have a tendency to say, hey, liberals don't read, or there are a lot of liberals don't read and they just go out and they just go pull the liberal thing, I want to tell you you're right. A lot of liberals, they're liberals and they just go and they vote liberal. You're right. And conservatives as well. Conservatives go out there, and just because somebody says they're a conservative, they're going to vote and pull the lever for that conservative. You're right. There's a difference. A clock is always right twice. Even a dead clock is right twice a day. Because of the current state of our history, that progressive who goes and vote a progressive line, he's working for humanity. He or she's working for humanity. They're working to do the better good, whether they know it or not. So we give them a pass because guess what? What their hands are doing, what they're voting, whether they're red or not, they're doing the right thing. That's not where we are in the conservative movement. The conservative movement has become an evil movement. And I love my friends, and I know that you don't see it that way, but it really has become a movement that harms, a movement that damages, a movement that hurts people. And we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to remember that conservative is just an ideology. That's all. It's an ideology. But the most important thing I want my conservatives with a conscience, with morality to know is I understand peer pressure. I really do. Peer pressure is a hard thing. You say you're a conservative and you're hanging with conservatives and you can't buck the system because you don't want to be different. It's just like when we were children, right? You didn't want to be different. I was different. I was always damn different. And I didn't care about being different, you know? But most people aren't that way. Most people aren't that way. Most people are fearful of being different. That is what a private voting booth does for you. And this is what I tell people. I don't care what you tell a pollster. I don't care what you tell your friends. I don't care what you tell other people when they, you're not voting for that guy, are you? Laugh it off or whatever. But when you go in that booth, between you, that machine, and whomever or whatever you call God, do the right thing by the citizens of your state, by the citizens of your county, by the citizens of your city, by the citizens of your country. Do the right thing. Because if you do the wrong thing, if once again you elect people, if once again you elect people who materially harms your neighbor, who materially kills with their policies, who materially causes world angst, who continuously put the world in atrophy, puts the environment in atrophy. If you knowingly do that, and you simply plead willful ignorance, it's on you. It's on you. And you can consider yourself, I don't care, you go to church on Sundays, you go to church whenever, you talk about pro-life and all that kind of stuff. Remember, you would have been responsible for the deaths of many of your fellow Americans. Because this is not a joke. This is not a joke. Here in Houston, Texas, with the change in the environmental laws in Cancer Alley, more crap is going to be let out into the air. Who's going to die? Not those guys in Washington. They don't live around those things. They don't live around those things. So when you vote, and you vote for people who are deregulating, remember, when you think about it, it is your responsibility to note that you are assisting the decimation, the deaths, the killings, the murders of many of your fellow citizens. I want you to know that. And this is not, I'm not saying this to be mean. I'm not saying this to feel superior or higher and mighty. I'm just saying that's the way it is. Because those will be, they currently are, and they will continue to be the results of your vote. So you can decide. You can decide if you can live with your conscience knowing that your vote will not only cause the deaths of people pretty soon, but would decimate the environment in such a way that it'll continue killing dioxin, pollutants in the air, all these things. Your support for a party that wants that is a support to end the lives of many. Okay, that's pretty much what I wanted to get out there. I needed to get that out there because that's been on my mind. Let me go ahead now and see if I need to go ahead and talk to anybody else here. Let's see. All right. Okay, as Michael Redden, as a progressive, I'll support any policies which benefit the people or the environment, and any politician with a platform suggesting they will vote for people and planet above all concerns. That is what every human being, every American citizen should be saying, Michael Redden. Every American citizen should be saying that. But we're close to the end of the show, and I'm going to have to close this baby out. So what I want to tell you guys is put one more pitch out there. Folks, it's a progressive show. We need your support. We cannot survive without your support. I need to have several thousand very small subscribers. And right now what we're doing is we're building up towards that. We've just started building up towards that, but we need you. So what I want to ask you folks is the following. Please go to patreon.com. That's what's on your screen right now. Patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Patreon.com/politicsdoneright. And become a member. Become a subscriber. Let's work at this stuff together. Let's make sure. I am going to be out there all over. I'm going to be in D.C. in a few, about 3 weeks, doing some other progressive conferences where we're going to kind of figure out exactly how we're going to reach other groups of folks as well. This one, we have to pay ourselves. So we ask you to help support. You know, we have some organizations that fly us here and there, but most of the recent flying we have to do on our own. And I am down on all our you know, again, I've invested my life into politics and loving it because I know we are making a difference. So please go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. And you know how I'm going to shut this baby down. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And I am out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.